Hey guys, welcome to the Op Art project. I'd like you to take a look at this painting, right? Really look at it. This is a piece of op art, and it should make you feel dizzy or like it's moving, right? The colors are so intense and kind of vibrating against each other. Try, adjusting how you look at it. You can look at it close. You can look at it from further away. You can also try softening your gaze to see how that changes your experience of it. This is a piece of op art, which is short for optical art, right? So this style of art is all about creating an optical experience, right? So something that makes you feel a way because of what you're seeing, right? Optical has to do with eyes, right? So it's creating this kind of intense optical experience. I always like to start op art with this particular painting because I have a personal connection with it. So this is a painting by Sol LeWitt. It's at MassMoCA, which is short for the Massachusetts Museum of Contemporary Art. It's out in North Adams. If you ever have the chance to go, it's one of the best contemporary art museums in the world, and it's right here in Massachusetts, not too far from us. This painting is like the whole wall. It's huge, just floor to ceiling, wall to wall, this like intense, red and green waves that are just vibrating against each other. It takes up the whole room. There's nothing else in the room. And I went here with some students years ago, and we stood together in this room, like letting this experience kind of engulf us. And it was like such an intense and memorable experience that kind of changed how I view op art, right? I never really let myself experience in that way before. And it's just, yeah, it's like dizzying, and you feel like you're moving. And so the point is, we're going to talk about what creates that feeling, right? There are some specific elements that you can use, kind of like a formula, to create a piece of artwork that feels like this. And there are lots of different designs that you can use, right? It doesn't have to look like this, but we're going to use certain types of colors and certain types of shapes to create a piece of your own optical art. So let's look at the next slide here. Okay, so that experience of the colors kind of vibrating against each other is called retinal flash. I'm going to be saying that a lot in this class. I want you to know what it means, right? So again, a retinal flash is, when you see something that, it's a still image, but it looks like it's vibrating or pulsating. It has to do with the intensity of the colors against each other. Again, that is called a retinal flash. I'm going to be saying it a lot. So, op art is generally abstract. It's usually geometric, but it could also be organic. That last one was actually one of the kind of more organic examples, right? So geometric is when you have shapes like squares, triangles, circles, simple mathematical shapes with straight lines and corners and perfect circles. Organic is more, shapes that can't necessarily be defined. They're irregular shapes, often curvy. So you're going to have the option to do either geometric or organic shapes. Op art was classically made in black and white. Black and white will be an option, but I do really want to encourage you guys to use complementary colors. and we're going to talk more about that in a bit. Op art was a movement that started in the 1960s at a time when psychologists were, there was like a big kind of fad in psychology using optical illusions. And so artists saw that and kind of built upon it and created an art form out of it. All right, back to our elements of art. So we are going to be talking about color. We are going to be talking about shape, but we're going to focus on value the most in this project. So value is one of the trickier ones. I know a lot of people tend to forget what it means. Value is all about the lightness or darkness of a color. Right, so you can have a red, or you can have a very light red or a very dark red. So when we talk about how light or dark something is, we are talking about its value. All right, so here's an example. We're looking at this color wheel, and this color wheel has a range of different values from inside to outside. So if you look at the center ring, this is the lightest value on this particular color wheel. And all of these colors are sharing the same value. They are different colors, but they're in the same value range. Right? So each ring is a different range, and the different colors can, any color can have the same value as a different color. Right? You can have a light yellow and a light purple that share the same value, even though they're different colors. So, in order to create that retinal flash, okay, one of the ingredients in this formula is using colors that have the same value, right? So using two different colors that have the same value, the same intensity, is one of the ingredients that creates that retinal flash. So that's why we're talking about value. I'm going to come back to this interactive color wheel at the end, but we'll see that again. After this presentation, I'm going to want you to play around with it. So I'm just going to very briefly introduce the principles of design because I don't want to confuse you guys too much. But the principles of design are kind of, we've been talking about the elements of art, right? So every project we've covered an element of art. And typically after we discuss all the elements, we move on to the principles of design. If the elements were your materials, the principles are the way that you arrange those materials. So the principles are ways to use your elements in different arrangements to create different feelings and effects. So essentially, they're tools that that artists use to create certain feelings. I guess another way you could look at it is if the elements are your materials, the principles are your tools, right? So your value is your nail, pattern is your hammer, if that makes any sense. So we're just going to briefly talk about pattern. Pattern is anything visual that repeats, right? So we see pattern in other subjects, especially in math. It's similar but a little bit different. However, the main idea to remember about pattern is it's something that repeats. So in op art, we are using pattern. We are arranging our color and our value and our shape into patterns, right? So repeating images. Okay, and to touch on color a little bit too, we're hitting all the highlights here. So color, we talked about color in different projects, but we didn't talk about complementary colors, right? So we talked about our primaries, red, yellow, blue, our secondaries, green, orange, and purple, which are combinations of two of the three primaries each. And now we're going to look at complementary colors, which is essentially the opposite of a color. So if you look at the color wheel, if you look exactly opposite the color wheel from yellow, let's say, to purple. So purple and yellow are complementary colors. They are opposite each other. Same with blue and orange and red and green. So those are the kind of standard complementaries, but you can have a complementary at any point along that wheel, right? So any of the intermediate colors has an exact complementary that is exactly opposite on the color wheel. And again, when we bring value into this and you make a color lighter or darker than its hue on the color wheel, you're also going to adjust that in your complementary so it has the same value, but it's opposite the color wheel, right? The complementary. Okay, we're looking at another one. So that first painting we looked at was red and green, which are complementaries. Here we have orange and blue, also complementaries. And again, an intense retinal flash. And if you notice, the retinal flash gets more intense as you go towards the center, where the lines get smaller and closer together, right? So that's another kind of ingredient in our retinal flash recipe. Having shapes that are close together and alternating. And so again, every time we look at a piece of artwork, I want you to try and really look at it, right? Adjust how you're looking at it to get different experiences of it. You know, look up close, look far away, soften your gaze, see how it feels, right? This one, we're kind of spiraling down a tunnel toward this point, this like indefinite point way in the distance. And yeah, it feels like it's spinning, it's dizzying. And there's a very intense retinal flash happening, especially towards that center. So now I'm going to show you a bunch of different pieces of op art. And as you look at them and experience them, I want you to also think about, you know, which ones you like. What do you like about them? Do you like organic shapes? Do you like geometric shapes? You know, do you like things that swirl? Do you like things that are going towards one point? Do you like the black and white? Do you like the complementary colors? Just think about what it is you like about each particular one, which ones you like better, so that you can apply these ideas to your own design. Right, and obviously we're going to explore more and do some planning together, but I want you to, you know, take these in as possible sources of inspiration for your own project. Let's look at another one. All right, here's a black and white example, kind of similar to the last, but I love that the zigzag element in this one creates kind of alternating, you know, sections of movement, right? So because the lines zigzag, it feels like one kind of area is rotating one way and the next is rotating the other way, and they're kind of, you know, alternating, going back and forth. But we still have that, you know, point that all the lines are going to that point. The retinal flash again gets more intense towards that center as the lines get closer together. Right? Don't forget to experience it. This one's a little bit different, right? There are more than two colors in here, but there's still, you know, it's all these geometric lines, kind of overlapping, colors close together, creating that retinal flash. I love the way in this one, the color, you know, the lines overlap to create different colors. Okay, here's another more traditional kind of black and white one. Clearly the artist was inspired by, you know, the shape of an eye, but it's, yeah, it's like pulsating and undulating, right? Also just the action of like moving back and forward while you look at it is like pretty cool. Right? The movement that it creates. This one's a little bit different, so I wanted to include some more organic options if that's what you're into. This is another artist who her work is very kind of lava lampy, right? Um, kind of playing with the idea of oil and water together, these shapes that are um, intermingling but not really combining. And so it doesn't have that same kind of like spinning movement, but it does still have that retinal flash, right? You see the intensity of that pink just vibrating against the green. Here's another one from that same artist, right? So in this one, she's introduced three colors, but the red and the green are the complementaries. And I guess that red is kind of an orangey red, which orange is the complementary of blue. So it kind of plays on it on both colors a little bit, but that red is the most intense, right? It's kind of vibrating and in your eyes. And again, this one isn't, moving or spinning in the same way, but it still has that retinal flash that kind of feels like it's jumping off the page. Here's one last one from this same artist who, right, this one is a little more subtle. I wanted to show you guys a different kind of value selection, right? So in this piece, she's used a lot of muted colors, right? So they're not quite as bright, they're not quite as intense. When you use really, really bright colors, it's going to make the retinal flash more intense. But using muted colors, it doesn't make it go away, right? We still have the complementaries kind of vibrating off of each other, especially that kind of orangey yellow feels like it's really vibrating and jumping off the page. Here's another more traditional one, again, black and white, spiraling, spinning downwards. Right? I love like doing this, it really makes it move. It really makes that movement feel more apparent. And something interesting about this piece, just to notice how it's made and how, like it looks complex, but when you take a step back and look at how this was made, it's actually very simple. So if you direct your attention to the outer edges, you'll notice that, right, so it's just a black square, and then the artist added a white square, slightly smaller and slightly tilted. And then another black square, slightly smaller, slightly tilted. White square, slightly smaller, slightly tilted. All the way, that's all it is. It's just a stack of like slightly smaller, slightly tilted squares all on top of each other. Here's another one, slightly different style, right? So I'm trying to give you some different options to choose from for your own, right? I want to give you inspiration to make your own piece of op art as opposed to just, copying a simple formula. All right, so I want you to take a look at these, experience them, see what you like, think about how you could apply some of these designs or ideas or colors to your own work, and how you could switch them up to make it your own. This one I couldn't resist putting in because it's so cool. It is a little bit different than what we're doing because there is some shading involved here, right? So the artist has made it, added a darker value on the orange and blue that's in the back to make it feel like, there's space there. But it's just, this is a still image that just looks like it's spinning. It's just cool. It's really cool. The way that that these ingredients to this formula can trick your eyes into feeling that movement. All right, so again, we're going to come back to this color wheel. right? So we're in our project, we're going to be trying to create our own retinal flash, some kind of abstract piece of op art. I'd like you to choose either black and white or a set of complementary colors. You're welcome to add some other accent colors. That's what I'm looking for. If you want to use more than just two colors, you can use some accent colors, but I want you to use primarily either black and white or complementary colors. So I'm going to take you here to this interactive color wheel, and the link to this is on the website in the directions, right? So here we are at this color wheel. It's automatically set to complementary when you come in. And so what you're going to do is you're going to drag this dot around to choose a color you like. All right, so when you find a color you like, down here it shows you the exact complementary of that color. So when you keep your dot towards the outer edge, these are the brightest, most intense colors. Right, so these are like your neons. You don't have to stay out here, although the brighter colors will create a more intense retinal flash, if that's what you're going for. But I want you to create some retinal flash, but if it makes you nauseous to work just with those two colors on the brightest end of the spectrum, feel free to choose pastels or dark colors or muted colors, right? So if you come towards the center, you get the muted complementaries. We can also, on this outer ring here, this dot, we can adjust them to be dark. We can adjust them to be light. Right, so you can play around with the many, many options for a set of complementary colors. So when you do choose the complementary colors that you want, let's say I'm going to use these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Snip and Sketch. So this is a way that it seems like works for everyone. What I usually do myself is this shortcut, so Windows logo key Shift S. You hold them all down at the same time. If that doesn't work for you, you can open this program in your computer. It's called Snip and Sketch. All right, you click New, and then you can drag a box around your colors. Right, now it's copied to my clipboard, and I can paste this into my PowerPoint. All right, so that is a long one, but a good one. So your task for today is simply to play around with that color wheel, pick out a pair of complementary colors that you like, that you think you might want to use for your project. All right, I'll see you next time.